If you think clients are saying no because of your price, you're actually losing out on countless deals and thousands of dollars. That one belief is quietly keeping you broke, because the number one reason that clients hesitate isn't because of money. It's not budget, it's not timing, it's not I need to run this by someone else. The real objection, the one hiding under every excuse, is, will this actually work for me? And once you understand that, you stop chasing surface level excuses and you start closing premium deals with confidence. In this episode, I'm pulling straight from my new Agency from Zero project, where I'm building a brand new agency from scratch to 100K with no case studies, no leads, and I'll share the real objection handling moments that are making or breaking deals in real time. And in particular, there's one conversation that if I'd handled it the old way, it could have cost me $100,000. And I'll also share the exact framework for objection handling that you can start using right away on this call. Just yesterday, I was reviewing one of my students' calls, and on the surface, the prospect said something that we've all heard before. They said, I'll need to check with my colleague before making a decision. Now, my student thought he'd hit the wall. He'd assume that this was about authority or hierarchy or someone else needing to sign off. But after carefully reviewing the call with my student, the prospect had actually dropped a much bigger clue. They asked, how will we make sure that we're targeting the right audience? And that's when it became clear. This wasn't about a colleague. It wasn't about approval. The real objection was, will this work for me? Will it reach the people that I need it to reach? So here's the shifts worth remembering. First, objections aren't roadblocks. They're invitations. Next, the first objection is almost never the real objection. You need to dig deeper, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And third, it's always worth reviewing your calls, because you often miss little details in the moment. And reviewing your calls is by far the best way to learn and improve. And this is something that we do every week with our students inside our Video Business Mastery program, helping them fix key bottlenecks in their business that are sometimes costing them tens of thousands of dollars. So before we move on, remember this. Most creatives stop at the surface level objection because they don't want to feel pushy, but the great ones dig deeper. They're willing to sacrifice a little short-term discomfort to ultimately close the deal and help the client get the outcome. Now, let me give you a bigger example, one I'm right in the middle of. So I'm working on a $100,000 deal, and in the very first meeting, the prospect leaned back, crossed his arms, and said the words that every freelancer dreads. I'll need to run this by the board before making a decision. Now, here's where most people make a fatal mistake. They nod and they say, no problem, and then they rush to write a proposal that the prospect can then take to the board. And that's why most proposals die in the email inbox. But instead of walking away, I leaned in and I asked 3 hard questions. First, what criteria will the board be using to make their decision? Then, what criteria matter to you personally? And other than the board's approval, is there anything holding you back from moving forward right away? And that is when the real objection surfaced. It wasn't the board, it wasn't budget, it was risk. He was scared. Not the money, it wasn't about budget, he was scared of reputational damage. If this project failed, it wouldn't just waste money, it would make him look bad in front of his entire organization. And suddenly the conversation changed. We weren't talking about deliverables anymore. We were talking about, firstly, how to make sure that the right decision makers actually see the videos. And this meant investing time in the research phase to get clear on their audience, and I had to share some examples of how we've handled this challenge in the past. Second, it was how to present ideas in a way that would actually resonate with the board. So in this case, it was about getting clear on how they wanted to measure results. And third, it was about making sure that the project wasn't just about creating pretty footage. It was making sure that it was going to drive outcomes and get them a return on investment. And so for this, we set some specific milestones with clear targets month by month. And those 3 questions are what ultimately enabled me to go on to then anchor at $100,000, because it wasn't about selling video. It's about reducing risk for the client. I shared the rest of my process and how I go about price anchoring in one of my previous videos, so you can see that on my channel, along with a PDF download of the framework. So here's what I want you to take away. Clients don't fear your price, they fear making the wrong decision. Silence on a sales call isn't rejection, it's actually often where the truth lives. And objections aren't obstacles, they're roadmaps to what your prospects really care about. And once you see objections this way, you stop getting ghosted and you start closing more deals. So I want to provide you with some practical, actionable value that you can start using right away. So here's the exact framework I use, and I call it the double unlock. So first is to acknowledge, demonstrate that you've actually heard them. You can say, totally understand that you need the board's approval. That makes sense. Then unlock the real objection by asking twice. So I would say, other than the board's approval, is there anything else holding you back from moving forward right away? Then again, so got it. So other than the board's approval, you feel like this is exactly what you need to hit the outcome. Listen carefully for their tonality, and if you hear any doubts, make sure you stop and explore them. I would ask something like, did I hear a little uncertainty in your yes? Most of the time, something deeper will come out. So then step 3 is the mini discovery. And once you hear the deeper objection, dig in with 3 more questions. When you say objection, what do you mean specifically? So that might sound like, when you say that we don't have the budget right now, what do you mean specifically? Then you can say, tell me more. And what do you mean exactly? So that could be, what do you mean when you say there's an approval process? And the goal here is to get to what I call bedrock, the real root of what's holding them back. So there it is, 3 simple steps. And once you do this, the real objection is always revealed. And the best bit is, once the real objection is out, you can then finally deal with it. And if I'd taken the board excuse at face value, I'd have sat around waiting for an email that probably would have never come. If my student had accepted the colleague excuse, he'd have walked away without ever addressing the real fear. But because we pushed, because we asked the uncomfortable questions, we uncovered the truth. And when you uncover the truth, then you can handle the real objection. And that's how you move from 2K deliverables and shooting and editing to 25K to 100K strategic deals. Okay, so here's how you can start applying this right now. Number 1, never accept the first objection. It's almost always a smokescreen. Number 2, always check twice. So you can say, other than this, is there anything else holding you back? Number 3, dig in with 3 discovery questions until you uncover the real fear. Clients don't buy because they have no objections. They buy because you address the right one. And remember, I'm not just sharing theory here. I'm building a 100K agency from scratch. No case studies, no portfolio, no leads, and every call matters. So when I tell you that the real objection is always, will this work for me? It's because it really is the main objection that I'm handling on my calls. If you found this useful, DM me the word objections on Instagram, and I'll send over my step-by-step PDF guide to dealing with objections. I outline the 4 most common objections and exactly what to say to help reframe and overcome so you can ultimately close more deals. And finally, help this video get seen by others who need it by leaving a comment below. Let me know what you found valuable or what you'd like me to cover next. Now go out and practice what I've covered here on this call and implement it in your next conversations, and you'll never look at objections the same way. I'll see you in the next video.